Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, then click on the subscribe button, like and share your thoughts on this video. Talk about palm color people being R to the cis. You're not going to believe this, but yes, she said it. Now it has gone as far as palm color people having a problem with the way the community or us black people are named and how our children are named. In this video, you will hear her saying that people are notorious for naming their children 25-letter word names that they're never gonna get even pronounced right, let alone spelled right. Now, while saying all of this, a lady who I believe is also black in the background responds to her by telling her the reasons why. Now, the reason she gives for this is what is said. Did you know that black people used to give their children unique names in order to identify their offspring, who were sometimes sold out to other plantations during slavery? So this came down generationally as generational trauma. What this palm color woman was doing was literally making fun of a whole culture, our culture as people. Check out this video as they had an altercation.
People are notorious for naming their children 25-letter names that they're never going to get even pronounced right, let alone spelled right. Like, why would you do that?
Do you know why they actually do that? Yeah. The reason for that is because during slavery, their identities were taken away. So they had to have unique names in order to identify their offspring when they were sold from different plantations. So that came down generationally as generational trauma.
Okay, well, how about now? Isn't that sort of trauma for that kid that's never going to have his name spelled right?
Only to your standards. Like, what is...
If I were that child, I wouldn't want my name misspelled all the way through or mispronounced by people.
That's because people can't take the time to pronounce it correctly.
Whatever.
You can say supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, but you can't say Jaquan. Are you kidding me?
Okay, whatever the result is, the poor child does not have his name pronounced correctly or spelled correctly.
Because people do not take the time. You can take the extra 2 seconds to do it, but instead you're sitting here making up a whole culture of people for things that they didn't have a choice on.
Do you have a name that gets misspelled a lot?
I sure don't. Well, because my mom is my name.
So that's right.
Now, note that this video is not for bullying but for educational purpose only. Now, what is the fuss here all about? Is it because palm color people can't pronounce and spell these names or what? Is she trying to say that people should change their names, like we should change our names to something simpler or something that they can pronounce? I don't get it, because for a parent to give his or her child a name, it means it is so meaningful to them. It is something that has an interpretation. So I don't see why a black parent, or any parent rather, should be told what to name their child or children. Check out these teachers. I will be right back. When I do, we talk more about this artist behavior.
For naming their children 25-letter names that...
I'm sorry, didn't Gwyneth Paltrow name her child Apple? Didn't Elon Musk name his child the symbol for pi? You act as though there's no Haley Joes running around here with like 15 letters in it. You know what? I often say this. It's a phrasing, and maybe you probably don't know it because look at you. But staying in the business costs you absolutely nothing. So my kids got 25-letter names that they're not going to be able to spell. And I'm guessing your thing is they're also not going to be able to get a job. That says more about the people that want to hire them than it does, don't you think? Especially considering the fact that I have heard some wild names. Wild. Mark Wayne. That's one word. Mark Wayne. Mullen. Senator. Mark Wayne. His family just didn't have no time to give him a middle name. Mark Wayne. Named after who? Mark in the Bible and Wayne Newton. This right here, this shit right here is exactly why you have so many black folks that look at people and go, some of y'all are so out of pocket, you're crawling around on somebody's kneecaps, their pants. You were crawling around on the outside of their pants on their kneecap. That's how out of pocket they are. This bitch had the audacity. She had the gall. You understand? The gall to go after. Can y'all please keep us out in conversation?
That was That was something else, wasn't it, guys? Why would you? Well, I have a difficult pronouncing first name by the way it's spelled. My name is spelled Rodmyr. I almost misspelled my name because I'm still thinking about the. Anywho, it's spelled Rodmyr, and it is said in English Rodmere, and in Creole it is Woodmere. And so every time I went to school or anytime doctor's office, wherever, people constantly mispronounce it. I would get Rudmer. I would get Rodman sometimes. It's like, where is the A-N? But the one that used to always like make me giggle is when they said Rod my R. That used to make me giggle all the time. Like, seriously? But anyway, when I was younger, I didn't like my name because of that situation. Everybody mispronouncing it and shit. And I asked my dad, I was like, Daddy, why did you call me Rodmere? And he was like, your mother wanted to call you Rodmere. I wanted to call you Sophia. But your mother, she really wanted to call you Rodmere. And so that's the name, Rodmere in English or Woodmere in Creole. My mom passed away 19 days after I was born. So I never got to meet her. So it's now a name that I treasure because it's something that I have that I got from her. Other than life. You know, thank you for carrying me, Mom. Pushing me out and shit. But that's like, the name is just super special. And people still mispronounce it and I don't care. But mainly people call me Mia. But that name is always going to be very special to me. Because that is the name that my mother gave me. So, but anyway. That lady, but whole entire foot all the way in her. What was that? And this is my mama on her wedding day. I don't have a lot of pictures of her, but this one's my favorite. She looks happy. My dad's over here in the corner. He don't like his face on TikTok or any social media, so I won't put his face up, but that's my mom. Thank you, Mom, for such a beautiful name.
Are black names really weird or you're just artivist? Now, setting aside the many problems with this question, for one, black American parents aren't a monolith. There's an actual answer here. In a 2003 paper for the National Bureau of Economic Research, economist Roland Fryer found two things. First, that names like Reginald and Kiara are far more likely among children than names like Jake and Molly. And second, that this is a recent development. In the 1960s, Anglo-American names were common among African American children. It wasn't until the 1970s and the rise of the power movement that this shifted in the other direction. Now, the underlying philosophy of the Black Power movement, writes Fryer, was to encourage blacks to accentuate and affirm black culture and fight the claims of black inferiority. The adoption of black names is consistent with other cultural changes like natural hair prompted by the movement. Now, African Americans wanted to distinguish themselves from palm-colored people, and naming was an easy means to the end. Of course, there are plenty of African Americans who give their kids Anglo names. The idea that they don't, that all parents use the same naming convention, is ridiculous. And popular culture notwithstanding, these distinctive names aren't especially common. The most popular African American baby names, Aaliyah, Gabriel, Kiara, Cameron, Jordan, and Nathan, are perfectly ordinary. Now, if there's a question worth asking about naming, it's not why do black people use these names. It's why do we only focus on people in these conversations. Indeed, there's a whole universe of hacky jokes premised on the assumed absurdity of so-called ghetto names, the region for these names, and often the people who have them is culturally acceptable. But black children aren't the only ones with unusual names. It's not hard to find palm-color kids with names like Braylene and Declan. And while it's tempting to chalk this up to poverty, in the Reddit thread, there was an agreement that this was a phenomenon of poor blacks and poor palm-color people. The wealthy are not strangers to unique names. The popular Netflix show Orange is the New Black, written by a Janji Kohan, a palm-color woman, was based on the experiences of a Piper Cayman. It should be said that this has material consequences in the real world. Research has consistently found that job applicants with black-sounding names are more likely to be rejected, regardless of qualifications. Now, if this is our case, then this makes sense. Since in a case system, your status is mostly a function of your position. Latoya could be well qualified for the law firm she applies to, but there's a fair chance her name marks her as undesirable. Now, it's the modern version of an odd dynamic best captured by Malcolm's X jokes. You know that they call a black person who ends a PhD and word. Black identity and its evolution shows how the controversy over how African Americans define themselves in the 20th century had its roots in the slave condition of the 19th century. West African naming ceremonies and the ritualized and celebration of names in Africa are contrasted with the uses of names as wounds against the humanity of slaves in America. Now, the various uses over time of such designating terms as African, Afro-American, colored, Afro are treated and related to black nationalist thought. The names controversy reveals the basis on which the confusion over identity rests, economic, political, and social structures facing black people in America. The tendency is consequently for the beta nationalist theorists to place relatively little value in engaging debates over names. People need to stop snickering at names. Now, as I was doing my research, I came across an article by a palm-color teacher who shares her experience. She says, as a public school teacher, few things give me as much anxiety as getting my student rosters for the first time. I look over the list of names for my incoming children and cringe. How do I pronounce that? Every year it never fails. There's always at least 4 or 5 names I've never seen before, or at least never spelled quite like that. As a palm-color teacher in a district with a majority black students but very few black teachers, there's not really many people to turn to for guidance. And if I don't figure it out soon, I'll be making a pretty terrible first impression. No one likes to have their name, especially children, especially if an adult is doing it, especially if that adult is palm-color. Now, the only solution I found is to soldier on with the first day's attendance and just try my best. It's uncomfortable, but I get through it and eventually learn. However, one thing I've stopped doing is going to other palm-color people for help, because that's a recipe for disaster. It almost always turns into an exercise in subtle artism and WS. No matter who the person is, no matter how kind, caring, or empathetic, the reaction to unique names is most often derision. Palm-color people snicker and use the situation as the impetus for telling stories about other names that they thought were even more outrageous. It's not that we're trying to be hateful. I don't think we even recognize it as art of this, but it is. We use the situation as an opportunity for bonding. Now, make no mistake, this is art of this behavior. We are emphasizing the otherness of an entire group of people to put ourselves over and above them. It's bigoted, denaturing, judicial, and just plain dumb. What's wrong with names anyway? What about them is so unacceptable? We act as if only European and anglicized names are reasonable, but I don't have to go far down my rosters to find palm-color kids with names like Braylon, Declan, Jadon, Jackson, Ghana, or Hunter. I've never heard palm-color yakling it up over those names. I can't imagine why palm-color people even expect people of color, or black, or rather, to have the same sorts of names as we do. When you pick the label by which your child will be known, you often resort to a shared cultural history. My great-great-grandfather was David, so I'll honor his memory by calling my first son the same. Jennifer is a name that's been in my family for generations, so I'll reconnect with that history by calling my daughter by the same name. Now, few people in America share this same culture with palm-color people. If man's great-great-grandfather's name was David, that might not be the name he was born with. It may have been chosen for him, forced upon him by his master. It should be obvious why African Americans may be uncomfortable reconnecting with that history. Are black names really weird, or palm color people just can't take their time to learn and pronounce them correctly? Kindly share your thoughts on what you think about this video. Thank you for watching and see you in my next video. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button.